Well, in the last hour, the Republican-backed referendum on redistricting qualified for the November ballot. Joining me now on our news panel are Paul Rogers, San Jose Mercury News environment writer, and David Baker, San Francisco Chronicle energy writer. David, I'm going to start with you. Rising gas prices has spurred some hot political debate. Why?
It's going to keep doing that for months. This is one of those things that everybody feels, anyone who has a car, and outside of that, even your grocery prices go up when gas and oil prices go up. It's something that people can see every day when they're driving to work. They see the signs along the side of the road. And when you get in a situation like we've had here in California, where in the last 2 days alone, we've gone up 14 cents on average across the state, people see that in the midst of their commutes, and it freaks them out. It makes them worried about where it's going next. And politicians feel compelled to jump in on that. They feel forced to sometimes by their constituents, but when you're in an election year, they also can't resist it themselves.
Well, right now they're blaming President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Could any president have avoided this? Well, I guess that's not a fair question, but is it likely that a president could have avoided this?
This is one of those things. I mean, sometimes presidents, for their own political purposes, will want to jump on this issue because it's useful as a way to talk about other things like energy policy. But this is not something that presidents actually get to control. The main reason our gas prices are going up is the oil price has gone up. The main reasons for that are there's a very real possibility of war between Israel and Iran, which could potentially close off the Straits of Hormuz, and that would block off a lot of the supplies of oil that come from that part of the country or part of the world. And at the same time, you have oil basically just being treated as another investment commodity by a lot of people who don't actually intend to ever take possession of a tanker full of it. So you've got banks and other big investors who jump in and out of this market depending on which way they think it's going to swing. And as a result, you get these big changes, and that translate directly to the gas pump.
David, that's what I wanted to mention. There's so much misinformation that's flying around out there. We talk about, we hear people saying, well, if we could just drill for more oil right away, the price would come down in the short term. Every government agency that studied that under Bush and Obama says it would only amount to a couple of cents. Yep. The U.S. has 2% of the world's proven oil reserves and uses 25% of the world's oil, right? So if we drilled every bit of the California coast, Big Sur, Alaska, Florida, it wouldn't make any difference to the supply. Talk more about this speculation piece. I mean, it seems to me that the same sharks on Wall Street who tanked the housing market and hurt the middle class with their gambling over the last 5 years are doing it again on oil futures. They are gambling with these things at a much higher rate than ever before. And is it ever going to be regulated properly in a way that they actually have to take possession of the oil?
That last bit, no, not really. I mean, there are tighter regulations that are on the books in terms of, or making their way towards the books that are on the table, I should say, that would restrict the amount of positions, open positions that a trader can have in this particular market. But I mean, it's essentially just like gold at this point. It's a commodity like any other. And frankly, you know, those of us who have retirement plans, 401ks, our money's in that market, probably. We don't know it, but it's probably moving in and out of that market all the time. You mentioned the drilling. Mm-hmm. That's one of the most interesting things about what's going on right now. We are actually, in the United States, in the midst of a small oil boom that could get a lot larger. We've actually had increased oil production in the country for the last couple of years straight, since 2008. It's the first time since the 1980s that it's gone up year after year after year. And yet our prices are still this high. And
demand's going down, right?
Demand for gasoline in the country right now is 6% lower than it was a year ago because people are shifting to more efficient cars. So you've got increased supply, decreased demand, and yet the price is still going up.
And a public feeling helpless once more.
Yeah, exactly.
And do we expect this to continue into summer?
I think it will. There are a whole bunch of reasons that it will, even if war does not break out in the Middle East. But there are other things that are going to be pushing it up over the course of the next couple of months. There's always the possibility that something will happen that will divert that, because oil prices can be very hard to predict once you get past 3 or 4 months out. But yeah, I think it's going into the summer.
Well, Paul, you have a story that no one, I don't think, could have predicted, even in the last month or so. Why don't you tell us what happened with with Dr. Gleick and the whole business of global warming.
Well, this is one of the most contentious environmental escapades of the last year. It's a real soap opera what's happened here. The short version is Peter Gleick, who runs an organization called the Pacific Institute in Berkeley, is a nationally renowned water expert and scientist. He has a PhD from Berkeley. He was a MacArthur Genius Award winner. He's testified before Congress, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A month ago, some documents were leaked out of a libertarian think tank in Chicago that is very skeptical of the scientific consensus that the Earth is warming and humans are to blame. This is the Heartland Institute, they're called. Over the years, they've taken money from Exxon and the American Petroleum Institute and places like that. And nobody knew who leaked these documents. They were put out on the web to various websites. They were internal documents about fundraising, about their strategies, things like that. And about a week ago, Peter Gleick writes an editorial or a column in the Huffington Post fessing up and saying, I took the documents. And it turns out he used this subterfuge. He pretended to be a board member of this organization. He wrote fake emails to the organization saying, oh, could you send me these documents? I'm a board member who's changed my address. And they sent him the documents. And now the whole thing has blown up. People who are skeptical of the climate science are saying, see, this shows the scientists are just playing politics. They're playing dirty, just like the environmentalists accuse the climate skeptics and climate deniers of being. And the key question to me is, today, just a few hours ago, we saw Peter Gleick put out an announcement saying he was taking a temporary leave of absence from his position at the Pacific Institute. His board is investigating him. He's dropped off the American Geophysical Union's ethics committee that he was chairman of. He's dropped off another scientific education board that he was on. His reputation is really teetering. But the key question is, will he be criminally prosecuted or not? Did he commit some kind of wire fraud? Or is this a civil matter? And if so, will the Heartland Institute sue him? And then what happens?
Or is that expected? Do informed people think that they might?
Well, it's a really great question, because if they did file a lawsuit, and they've been putting out press releases to some of the organizations that have published these documents on their website with very heavy language talking about harmed our reputation, all the language you use when you're going to sue somebody for libel or slander or invasion of privacy. But if they did file a civil suit against Peter Gleick, then Gleick's lawyers could put all of their executives under oath. They could, in discovery, call out all of their secret documents. You know, a lot of this organization's donor lists, well, not a lot, all of them are secret. And little bits have trickled out here and there, but there's a lot that really could backfire on the Heartland Institute. So the key question at this point is, did Gleick cross the line into a crime like wire fraud? Usually wire fraud is when someone, tries to get your credit card number over the phone or online to make money. But there is some language in the federal statute that says, it doesn't have to just be money. It can be property of someone else. And so if a prosecutor wanted to go after him, that would be really interesting. I have no idea whether he's going to be prosecuted or not. And this is very closely watched by environmentalists and people in the energy industry.
Well, how will this affect the whole scientific community who have spent years and years working on, convincing us that we need to do all of these things to save the planet?
Well, that's really what I was hearing this week when I talked to a lot of environmental groups. A lot of environmental groups, they don't even want to talk about this. They're running away from it. Scientists are worried that it actually will harm the credibility of the scientific side as they're trying to explain climate change to the public. So there's more to come, and we'll have to see how big the fallout is.
Thanks very much, Paul.